Prince William exploded, and can you blame him? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I think stuff to do with family overwhelms me quite a bit. Worry or stress around family side of things, that does overwhelm me quite a bit.
Prince William is said to have prepared a countermove so cold and calculated that it could completely shift the balance of power within the House of Windsor. Yet this confrontation did not begin amidst the pomp of ceremonial seating, nor while hundreds of cameras were trained on the palace. It began behind closed doors at Clarence House, where King Charles III lay in a weakened state, medicated and largely cut off from key decision-making. Queen Camilla entered the room carrying a pre-prepared red leather portfolio. Inside lay not a personal letter, but a document that could pave the way for Tom Parker Bowles, Laura Lopes, and her grandchildren to step directly into the exclusive royal inner circle. Titles, ceremonial seats, privileged access, positions traditionally reserved solely for those of royal blood. Yet the most chilling aspect lay not in the text itself. It lay in the signature at the bottom of the page. Camilla reportedly placed the pen into Charles's frail hand, curled his fingers around it, and guided his hand across the paper, leaving behind a signature so scrawled and shaky that even his closest associates were left questioning. Was this truly the king's will, or a decision orchestrated when he was no longer lucid enough to object? Before the doors at Windsor officially close, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the counter move Prince William has been quietly preparing from the shadows. For just 2 days later, Camilla began acting as though that signature had already ushered her entire family into the royal fold. Just 2 days after that signature appeared on the document, things inside Windsor began to change quietly, yet in a highly unusual manner. Queen Camilla no longer acted like someone awaiting approval. She carried herself as if everything had already been decided, as if no barriers remained between her family and the privileges reserved solely for the royal bloodline. That morning, a motorcade entered the grounds of Windsor Castle. Camilla was the first to step out. Close behind her were Tom Parker Bowles, Laura Lopes, and the grandchildren. None of them appeared hesitant or anxious. On the contrary, the atmosphere felt more like a victory lap than an ordinary visit. What drew people's attention was not merely their presence at Windsor, but where they were being taken. They were not in the areas open to the public. They walked through corridors that were usually kept locked. They passed rooms housing priceless historical artworks, spaces accessible to only a select few. They entered the area where coronation regalia was kept surrounded by artifacts steeped in centuries of monarchical tradition. Tom Parker Bowles paused before a ceremonial chair. It was no ordinary seat. It was a chair reserved for princes and princesses of the royal blood during significant ceremonies. Tom slowly sat down. No one asked him to stand up. No staff member stepped forward to stop him. Nearby, Camilla's grandchildren ran about with the natural curiosity of children. They touched the marble statues of past monarchs, tugged at the heavy velvet curtains draping the windows, and blithely explored spaces that were normally strictly guarded. Queen Camilla stood quietly watching. A look of satisfaction played across her face, not because the children were at play, but because the scenes seemed to validate a long-held desire, her family occupying these iconic royal rooms, as if they belonged there naturally. That detail imbued the entire visit with a different significance. This was no mere tour or act of ostentation. Camilla was attempting to establish a new reality before anyone could scrutinize the legitimacy of the document bearing Charles's signature. If her family appeared repeatedly in those hallowed spaces, if they came to be seen as a familiar presence within the palace, then accepting them later would become far easier. Yet there was something Camilla was entirely unaware of. She was not alone in the castle that day. Up on the second floor behind a stone balustrade shrouded in shadow, someone was silently watching it all. It was Prince William. Without a sound, Without a word of warning, William stood motionless, his gaze tracking even the smallest details. He saw Tom Parker Bowles sitting in a ceremonial chair. He saw the children casually touching historical artifacts. He also saw Camilla calmly observing the scene, making no move to intervene. In that moment, William could easily have walked down the stairs. He could have ordered everyone to leave the area. He could have confronted Camilla right there in Windsor, but he did none of those things. For William understood that a public confrontation at that moment would only give Camilla exactly what she wanted, a chance to appear aggrieved before Charles and cast herself as the victim of a family dispute. So he quietly retreated further into the shadows, not out of acceptance, for he had just realized that this battle could not be settled by a few heated words in the corridors of Windsor. To thwart that plan, he would have to prepare a counter-move, one sufficiently discreet, legitimate, and powerful to deny his opponents any chance of turning the tables. William did not fly into a rage, nor did he have Camilla intercepted right there at Windsor. As he left the second-floor corridor, his expression remained as composed as it had been upon his arrival. Yet that very composure signaled that matters were about to shift into an entirely different phase. This was no longer a question of an overstepping tour or a few imprudent actions within the palace walls. What worried William was that if the document bearing King Charles's signature were accepted, the newly emerged privileges would rapidly harden into precedent. And once a precedent was set reversing, it would prove far more difficult than resolving any mere dispute. He needed someone capable of viewing the situation through the lens of the institution rather than through family sentiment. The first person who came to mind was Princess Anne. For decades, Anne had been regarded as a member who prioritized duty over personal interest. She had been mentored by Queen Elizabeth II and had fully embraced the late Queen's conviction that the stability of the monarchy must always take precedence over private relationships. If there was anyone with the mettle to confront Camilla without wavering, it was Anne. That night, after most of Windsor had gone dark, the two met in the archives deep beneath the castle. The space felt almost entirely cut off from the outside world. Towering bookshelves lined the walls. Rows of aged files stretched out in long lines. Yellow light cast down onto the cold stone floor, creating an atmosphere so heavy that every footstep echoed in the silence. William began the meeting by recounting everything he had witnessed. He spoke of the red leather briefcase that had appeared in Charles's room. He mentioned the signature that had raised so many questions. He described how Tom Parker Bowles had sat in the ceremonial chair reserved for members of the royal lineage. He described the scene of children freely touching historical artifacts, while Camilla stood by, watching with satisfaction. Finally, William voiced his deepest concern. If no one took action immediately, the current situation would cease to be merely a temporary privilege. It would gradually come to be viewed as a normal part of the monarchy, and by then it would be too late to stop it. Anne listened intently. She did not interrupt, nor did she take the time to criticize Camilla. After a few moments of silence, Anne asked just one question. Is there a precedent strong enough to block this document from within the palace itself? That was the moment the conversation shifted entirely. They began opening old files cross-referencing regulations that had spanned multiple reigns and tracing precedents that history seemed to have forgotten. Time slipped quietly by until Anne paused at an old, discolored document. It was the Royal Marriages Act of 1772. William turned the pages. The act had been passed during the reign of King George III after the marriages of the Duke of Gloucester to Maria Walpole and the Duke of Cumberland to Anne Horton sparked controversy within the royal family. Its purpose was to grant the monarch control over decisions that could affect the future of the royal line. Although the act was later superseded by the Succession to the Crown Act, 2013, William and Anne were not looking for grounds to debate marriage itself. What mattered to them was the principle underlying the document, a change capable of altering the structure of the monarchy could not be brought about by a mere signature obtained under questionable circumstances. William closed the file. They looked at each other. They had no intention of taking the matter public or launching a protracted legal battle. All they needed was a sufficiently solid foothold to halt the document's effect from within the palace itself before it could harden into an irreversible reality. The moment the old file was closed, both William and Anne understood they had found exactly what they needed. Not a weapon for an offensive strike, but a foundation solid enough to halt any further escalation. Yet time was running out. If Camilla truly believed Charles's signature had legitimized her plans, she would not wait. She would swiftly translate that document into concrete decisions, step by step maneuvering her family deeper into the heart of the royal establishment. The very next morning, the palace began to stir in a way that went almost unnoticed by the outside world. There were no press conferences, no official announcements, no public orders issued. And yet within Windsor, a quiet campaign of containment had begun. William and Anne divided the tasks between them with near absolute precision. Every activity involving Camilla was scrutinized. Logs of those entering and leaving her private quarters were constantly updated. Keys borrowed from the management office required a record of both checkout and return times. Every call to the ceremonial office was cross-referenced against the schedule. Requests for access to restricted areas were checked item by item. Even documents related to the red dispatch box were closely monitored. No one stood in Camilla's way. No one challenged her. Everything proceeded so normally that she remained completely unaware of the net of control slowly tightening around her. On another level, William assigned duties to bodyguards from the Welsh regiment, the force he trusted above all others. They did more than just provide protection. They became silent observers in every corridor. Every door was monitored. Every access pass was re-verified. Every change to the security system was logged. If at some point Camilla decided to use documents bearing Charles's signature to assert her authority, these guards would be the first line of defense. Meanwhile, Camilla was fully convinced that everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. She submitted a list, including Tom Parker Bowles, Laura Lopes, and her grandchildren, to the Palace Administration Office. Her objective was clear. She was requesting special passes for the entire family to attend an upcoming international royal event. These were no ordinary invitations. Each pass was crafted from gold-plated metal engraved with a unique security code and granted the holder access to areas reserved for high-ranking guests. In the royal world, such an item was far more than a mere card. It was a symbol acknowledging the bearer as part of an exclusive inner circle. Camilla believed no one had the right to refuse such a request. In her mind, Charles's signature had settled the matter entirely. The atmosphere surrounding the Parker Bowles family shifted as well. Laura began discussing with her mother which jewelry she would wear for the ceremony. They weighed outfit colors to ensure they aligned with diplomatic protocol. They deliberated on where they would stand while the international media filmed. They even envisioned how the family would appear before the cameras, making their debut as the new faces of the royal inner circle. The more they prepared, the more Camilla became convinced that the day would mark a major turning point. Little did she know that elsewhere in the palace, another list had just been delivered. It was not sitting on Charles's desk. It lay before Princess Anne. Anne picked up the file, slowly turning the pages and reading through the names. Her gaze lingered for a long time on the list of people Camilla wished to include in the ceremony. Her expression remained unreadable. Not a word was said. But in that very moment, Anne understood that the time to act had finally arrived. The trap was set. Now it was just a matter of waiting for someone to walk into it. Anne closed the folder and set the old rulebook aside. With only the ticking of the clock filling the room, both she and William understood that the preparatory phase had ended. From this moment on, every decision would be translated into action. There were no heated arguments. There were no proclamations made to the entire palace. Every move was made quietly, yet with enough precision to set the gears of the plan in motion. The guest list was reviewed from scratch. Each name was cross-referenced against current regulations, archives, and approval channels. Those failing to meet the criteria were marked for exclusion. UN-issued permits were withheld, while pre-printed ones were recalled for inspection. Elsewhere in the palace, the security control system was being updated. Access codes were changed. Entry passes were re-authenticated. Access lists for restricted areas were meticulously audited. Doors previously opened by electronic codes now accepted only the permissions updated according to the new list. The entire process unfolded in silence. Staff carried out their duties as part of standard procedure, leaving few aware that multiple new layers of security were quietly being erected. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Camilla remained convinced that everything was proceeding smoothly. She and Laura discussed their attire for the upcoming ceremony, weighed their choice of jewelry, and planned their appearance before the international media. The atmosphere was one of preparation for a major event, one they were certain would mark a significant milestone. This stark contrast heightened the tension. On one side, plans for a public appearance were being finalized. On the other, the very system enabling that appearance was being quietly overhauled. Notably, no one approached Camilla to raise objections. No warnings were issued. No one mentioned any hitches in the plan. Everything proceeded so normally that anyone might have believed the ceremony would go ahead exactly as intended. Yet that very silence signaled that matters had reached a point of no return. As the day of the event drew near, two diametrically opposed plans coexisted within the palace. One aimed for a highly anticipated debut. The other aimed to halt it at the critical moment. And the two were destined to collide at the gates leading to the ceremony. Camilla stood motionless beneath the golden arch. She still clutched the red briefcase tightly, but for the first time since stepping out of the car, the confidence had vanished from her face. The continuous clicking of camera shutters captured every subtle shift in her expression. Behind her, Tom Parker Bowles tried to maintain the smile his mother had instructed him to wear, yet his hands were clenched so tightly, his knuckles had turned white. Laura gently pulled her children half a step back, attempting to shield them from the dozens of lenses aimed their way. No one said another word. It was that very silence that made the atmosphere heavier than any heated argument could have. The captain of the guard remained at his post, his ceremonial sword held high. He spoke briefly. "Your Majesty, the standing order remains unchanged." Camilla turned to William. "You are turning a royal ceremony into a humiliation for your own family." William replied calmly, "No one is being humiliated today. Rules are simply being enforced as established." Anne closed the rulebook she was holding. She stepped forward. "If we make an exception today based on sentiment tomorrow, there will be another. Eventually, no one will know the difference between a rule and a privilege." A few distinguished guests began to exchange glances. They realized this was no longer merely a personal disagreement between William and Camilla. It was a clash between traditional power and the governing principles of the monarchy. Television commentators spoke almost in unison. This may be a rare moment where the entire machinery of the monarchy is being tested right before the cameras. Everyone is waiting to see who will back down first. Camilla took a deep breath. Slowly, she placed the documents back into the red briefcase. Many assumed she had accepted defeat, but then she took out her phone. She looked straight at William before speaking loudly enough for those standing nearby to hear. "If you do not acknowledge this document, then there is only one person who can confirm it." William did not reply. His gaze simply followed her every movement in silence. Camilla dialed a familiar number. The entire courtyard seemed to hold its breath. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. No one knew how the person on the other end would respond. Even Tom began to hope. If Charles confirmed the order right, then the gates might open before hundreds of witnesses and millions of viewers watching the live broadcast. The ringing stopped. The call connected. Camilla raised the phone to her ear. No one could clearly hear the voice on the other end, but all eyes were fixed on the expression on her face. First hope, then intense focus, followed by astonishment, finally a long silence. Camilla said nothing more. She slowly lowered the phone. William remained motionless. Anne did not press the issue either. Neither of them asked what the king had said, for it seemed they already knew the answer. A gentle breeze swept across the courtyard, causing the royal standard to flutter softly atop the gate. The crowd remained utterly silent. Not a single cheer, not a single jeer. There was only the sense that a decision more significant than anything that had just transpired was taking shape behind the palace walls. Camilla tightened her grip on the red briefcase once more. She understood that if she still wanted to change the outcome of the day, she would have to face the only person who could still turn things around. That person was King Charles III. Then the sound of engines from the motorcade suddenly echoed from the far end of the avenue, leading to the ceremonial grounds. All eyes turned simultaneously toward the gate. A black official vehicle slowly came to a halt amidst a line of bodyguards in ceremonial uniforms. The murmuring ceased. The rapid clicking of cameras fell silent. A rare hush seemed to descend upon the entire square. The car door opened. King Charles III appeared in a wheelchair flanked by 2 bodyguards and a medical aide. He looked much thinner than he had during his last public appearance. Fatigue was etched on his face after months of treatment. His shoulders slumped slightly, and his gaze seemed to take a few seconds to fully register the scene unfolding before him. No one stepped forward. William stood his ground in his ceremonial uniform, his hands clasped behind his back. Anne held the legal document closed earlier, her gaze calm yet fixed unwaveringly on the king. Camilla was the first to break the silence. She moved quickly toward Charles. "Charles, you have to tell them." Her voice lacked the steely resolve it had held just moments before. It was a voice tinged with both hope and anxiety. She took the king's hand in hers. "You signed that document. You just need to say the word. Tell William to give the order. Let Tom, Laura, and the grandchildren come in. It will all be over then." Behind Camilla, Tom and Laura stood in silence. They understood that the situation no longer hinged on legal arguments. It rested entirely on one man's decision. Hundreds of guests held their breath. Live television cameras were trained squarely on Charles. The king did not answer immediately. He looked down at the hand Camilla was holding so tightly. Then slowly he raised his head. His gaze turned first toward Camilla. It was not a look of reproach, nor was it one of anger. It held only a profound sadness, as if he understood that any choice he made would inevitably cause someone pain. After a few seconds, Charles turned to William. Father and son exchanged not a word. William remained motionless. He made no demands. He exerted no pressure. He did not attempt to persuade. It was that very silence that made the moment heavier than any speech could have been. Anne bowed her head slightly. She too remained silent. Everyone seemed to be waiting for a single action. Charles took a slow breath. He briefly squeezed Camilla's hand. Then, he gently withdrew his hand. There was no abrupt gesture, no cold movement, just a slow yet irreversible separation. Camilla stood frozen. Her hand remained suspended in the air. Disbelief was etched in her eyes. "Charles!" She whispered his name. The king did not reply. He slowly closed his eyes, as if gathering his remaining strength. Then he gave a slight nod to the captain of the guard. No explanation was needed. No spoken command was required. The captain instantly understood the signal. He turned to the guards. "Proceed with the approved protocol." 4 ceremonial swords remained fixed in position before the gate. No one was permitted to pass. Charles opened his eyes one last time. He glanced at William and Anne. It was not the look of a victor, nor that of a defeated man. It was the gaze of a monarch who understood that duty sometimes compels one to relinquish what one holds most dear. Immediately afterward, he tilted his head slightly. The bodyguard began to wheel the chair away. The chair slowly moved away from the ceremonial area. Charles did not look back. Camilla stood motionless. The distance between her and the wheelchair grew ever wider. With every meter the wheelchair rolled, It seemed to carry away the last shred of faith she had placed in her husband. There were no cheers from the crowd, no applause. A profound silence enveloped the square, for everyone understood they had just witnessed a decision unspoken, yet powerful enough to alter the entire landscape. William slowly lowered his gaze. Anne firmly closed the book of statutes she held. The head of the security detail signaled for the team to complete the procedure. Tom, Laura, and other members of Camilla's family were politely escorted away from the gate via a separate exit. Camilla remained standing there alone. Behind her lay the lenses of the international media. Before her stood the still-closed gate. And for the first time that day, she realized that what had just come to an end was not merely a ceremony, but the belief that personal power could transcend the constraints of the institution. The London taxis departed the palace grounds one by one. Inside each vehicle sat Tom Parker Bowles, Laura Lopes, and the children, all having just experienced a moment none of them would easily forget. They had arrived expecting to pass through the gates as part of the royal inner circle, only to leave as ordinary citizens. No motorcade, no ceremonial send-off, no remaining trace of privilege. In the Great Hall, Princess Anne stood before the ceremonial fireplace. The red leather dispatch box was opened, revealing the very documents Camilla had once viewed as the key to her family's future. Page after page detailing titles, access rights, ceremonial precedents, and future privileges was cast into the flames. Not a word was spoken. Not a warning was issued. There was only the rising fire consuming the text, the official seals, and Charles' own signature, reducing them all to ash. That scene marked more than just the failure of a plan. It signaled a clear shift in power within the palace. Charles remained king, but it was William who made the decisions and ensured their enforcement. In the days that followed, Tom and Laura's access rights were revoked. Camilla's family members were struck from the guest lists. Security clearances were canceled. The royal vehicles, lodges, and exclusive passageways, once reserved for them, were no longer available. Camilla returned to Clarence House to face deepening isolation. Charles did not openly oppose his wife, yet neither did he reverse the actions taken by William and Anne. The king's silence served as the ultimate form of assent. The 1772 statute was returned to the archives. Yet the principle it embodied remained as valid as ever. No family tie could ever take precedence over the stability of the crown. Camilla once believed that a single signature was all it took to open the royal door for her entire family. Yet William and Anne proved that a signature can be voided, a list erased, and a gate slammed shut forever. But what do you think? Is William protecting the future of the monarchy, or has he wielded his power too ruthlessly? Is Charles remaining silent out of duty to the crown, or because he no longer has the strength to shield Camilla? And in your opinion, does Camilla's family deserve to face these consequences? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy dramatic royal stories like this, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video.